So I'm here at the Perot Museum to help answer this question. Ironically, I just found it here as I was walking around. But what's wrong with just being a human anyway? We're here to talk about human augmentation, but we've got some questions to answer first. We're at the top of the food chain. We can go our whole lives without growing our own food or having to build our own houses. Heck, we can even sit on magical seats that take away our human excrement while we leave mean YouTube comments. So really, how does it get any better than that?
Well, we just can't help ourselves, can we? Not content to simply forage and hunt for our food, we learned how to grow it magically out of the ground. We did that for so long and we got so good at it that 98% of us don't even have to grow our own food anymore. So what do we do with all that extra free time? Well, besides the aforementioned YouTube commenting I heard that, we ultimately go about trying to make things better. What things? Pretty much all the things.
Including ourselves. It probably started with clothing. Those cold winter nights were made quite a bit warmer if we could get some hard-earned animal pelts around our shoulders. Early on though, we started to treat sickness and injury with stuff that we could just dig out of the ground, and some of it actually worked. Time marched on, we started to decorate ourselves a little bit better so that we could appeal to one another socially. And then, the biggest invention of all, we started to give meaning to things that we carved into stone, papyrus, wood. Those writings would become the time-traveling device of our ancient ancestors that would pass on their wisdom and their culture to us even today. This self-improvement is a human condition which continues to this day and has never been more exciting. So as we begin to examine some of these projects in the upcoming videos, which are making humans, I guess you could say, better, we need to take some time to better define that word. There's some inventions coming along and we're wading into some murky and uncharted waters when it comes to the stuff that we're making. And any one of these have the potential to obliterate our notions of humanity. Science concerns itself heavily with making representations of our reality. We call them models. There's big physical ones, like this giant thing that I'm standing in, and there's simple mathematical ones, like Einstein's E = mc squared, and there's just categories. It's helpful to put things in categories because it shows us some of the relationships that things have with each other. The field of that is called taxonomy, and when we study living things, we find out how they're related to each other. I think that's a great place to start at looking at what makes us human. In other words, what makes us not animals. Categorizing the millions of species here on Earth is a monumental task, to say the least. This model's really good. It's so good you need a magnifying glass just to read the individual species that are on here, but it's only got about 3,000 species on it. If you wanted to make one of these that covered all the species, you'd need one as big as this entire museum. Nevertheless, it's good enough to map out our purposes. We humans, we're here under eukaryotes. If you come a little bit lower down to animals, you immediately eliminate 2/3 of the circle. Come a little bit lower to the vertebrates, that's creatures that have spines like us, and you've only got just this little chunk left. You become a little lower to the mammals like our furry friends, dogs and horses, that's just this little bit. We're here in primates with some of our other monkey friends, and then down a little bit lower, way down at the end, you actually get to some of the hominids and us, Homo sapiens. Our genus and species is Homo sapiens. It's marked by several specific characteristics. We walk on 2 legs, but a lot of other primates do too. We're just the only ones that do it our whole adult lives, as a preference. We have some really adept hands that are good at climbing things, but that's true of other primates as well. Our jaws are a little bit weaker than other primates that have big jaws for biting into hard things that they can't cook first. But really, the main thing that separates our biology from that of other monkeys is our big giant brain case. We have a big giant brain compared to some of these other hominids, and as far as we can tell, there's no special structures to our brains. There's really no special devices hidden down inside of there that makes it so much better. It's just bigger.
You have to think about the brain like a computer. If you're old like me, you remember when we measured the memory storage capacity of computers in kilobytes. That's 1,000 bytes of information. A byte is 8 bits, and a bit is just a 1 or a 0, on or off, true or false, is or ain't. You get the idea. In a modern computer, a bit is stored in a really tiny switch, but in your brain, it's stored in a special kind of cell called a neuron. Think of a neuron like a light switch. It's either on or off, just like a bit is a 1 or a 0. Both of these are just forms of storing information. The more switches you have, the more information you can save. Bigger brains means more thinking power and more memories to store. Newer computers have memory capacities in terabytes. That's 1,000,000 kilobytes. They're way better than old computers. And just like old computers struggled mightily to move simple dots across the screen in a game of Pong, smaller brains just can't handle the kind of complex thinking that human brains can. They just don't have the hardware.
Before you get too smug, I just want to point out that some of the things we considered human qualities for a long time have actually been debunked. Some really clever researchers got together and put together a test called the mirror test, where they put a mark on some animals' faces and then showed them a mirror. Animals like chimps, these dolphins behind me, and elephants would actually reach up and try to get rid of the mark. They recognize themselves in a mirror.
Many animals can learn new skills, even novel skills they can use to solve problems they've never been presented with before. So learning and problem solving are definitely not unique human traits. Neither is communication or even learning the symbolic language of some humans. We've taught sign language to chimps, and crows have learned the meaning of our traffic signals. Aha, you cry, altruism is a uniquely human thing. Not so. Various mammals have been observed looking after sickly and injured members of their own or even other species. Birds will often regurgitate food for the young of other birds. Altruism, that is, helping someone at the expense of yourself, has even been spotted in a species of Antarctic fish, where orphaned eggs will be adopted by lone males who guard and tend the clutch until they hatch. Aw.
Going back to the idea of differentiating ourselves based on our taxonomy, it appears that the quality which makes us most human is our big old brains and the brain case that protects them. But if we're being honest with ourselves, that's not an altogether satisfying answer, is it? For example, I can have you think of your favorite food, and then we can go in here and pull off your skull and look down at your brain and dig around in it for a while, but nowhere in there are we going to find an actual picture of your favorite food. It's just not there. It's an abstraction. Our humanness isn't found in our hardware. It's something else, something that's in here somewhere, but not in the physical sense. So, because of its abstraction, it's going to require an abstract answer. Sorry. I'm here. Where is here? Well, that kind of depends on me, doesn't it? You try it. Say, I'm here. Go ahead. Or think it. I can't stop. Okay, so you and me are in two different places, even though we both just said, I'm here. Here is obviously a relative word. It's actually what we call an indexical term because it means different things to different people, depending on the set of circumstances that are around the whole thing. Now and I are also indexical words. You can't mail a postcard to here because here changes all the time, just depends on who's saying it. And it turns out that the word human is also an indexical word. It means different things to different people. But what exactly does it point to? What are the circumstances of human? Let's look at that.
Well, there's the rub, because it basically points to anyone who I consider to be like me. I hope you can immediately see that like me is going to be different from person to person. This is evidenced no more clearly, and perhaps tragically, than in how we invent ways to separate each other. Skin color, religion, political ideology, sexual orientation, even something as purely accidental as what side of an imaginary line on a map we happen to have been born on, has given the veneer of justification for all manner of hatred and atrocity. It seems the more dogmatically we hold to the notion that there is some kind of us and them, the more narrowly we focus our definition so that we may exclude others, the easier it becomes to inflict pain and suffering on them. If we can't agree on a simple biological definition, and the indexical definitions are a little too fuzzy and relative, we're going to have to look instead at the behaviors and motivations of humans, and in so doing, hopefully not only realize that the lines which separate we from them are arbitrary, but also equip ourselves to better respond to these coming inventions which are going to create new and equally dangerous lines. When posed the same question, Common answers to what makes us human include things like references to culture, innovation, and achievements. And of course, our artistic expressions are brimming with emotion and insight and sincerity. The exhibition of our shared experiences serves to unify us in joy, in sorrow, in victory, and even in tragedy. As we embark on adventures with heroes or delight in the subtle grace of dancers, even marvel at the grand visions of massive engineering projects, the social bonds that connect us and protect us are strengthened. As a people, though, our art reflects our humanity, but does it define us? I pose to you that instead it points to something deeper. Our innovations also serve as important milestones in the human history. While it's true that at one time or another clever humans crafted the first bow and arrows, or heated stone to purify iron, or even harnessed the difference in electrical charges, on a much more personal level, each of us develops his or her own solutions to the myriad problems of daily life. The choice of one's career, family, and your own self-expression are all problems we have to face and solve. We are problem solvers by nature, and the best sparks of ingenuity catch fire and rage through our modern world like never before. As a people, our innovations fuel our humanity, but do they define us? I pose to you that instead they point to something still deeper. Let's take a moment then to look into one more thing, most often described as definitively human: achievement. Our histories are full of bristling individuals of will who made their mark. You know their names and you know their faces, but can we really call a thing human if it's only so pointedly marked in precious few of us? Listen to the history retellings a little more closely then. Who went to the moon? We did. Who harnessed fire? We did. It almost has a certain inevitability to it, doesn't it? We discovered the vaccine. But did we invent slavery? Did we commit genocide? Surely not we. See, it is here that our achievements, both good and evil, point to the two qualities which make us definitively human.
So, why do we create and innovate and subjugate? Because one of the things that makes us human is our nature to adapt to and master our circumstances. Every one of our endeavors points to this nature, and at any time and at any place and to varying degrees, you can find human beings doing so. Our culture brings us together to remind us that we share experiences, and in so doing, we become stronger. If innovation is the fuel of humanity, then achievement is that engine. It propels us all to action. But why? Why are we driven so? It is here, at last, that we arrive at the one characteristic which truly defines us and reveals it. We look upon our environment and we see behind us a beginning, and in front of us an inevitable ending.
Seated deep within ourselves is the sure knowledge that time just trundles along. It always has, and it always will. That specter of eternity hovers over us. It existed before us, it will exist after us, and this immutable fact underscores all of our efforts. Unlike any other species, it motivates our actions in a way that goes beyond just the fear of mortality, for instead, we help to secure a future that we as individuals will never see.
Where is all this going? What future have we prepared for ourselves? Nobody really knows. For eons now, all of our efforts have led us to this point, to this now, and we have no idea what's beyond it. We managed to temporarily avoid the pitfall of nuclear holocaust, but now we find ourselves faced with a whole new slew of existential crises that have been brought on by our efforts. If in tackling each of these challenges, one by one, we can manage to retain our desire to master our circumstances, even in the face of eternity, I believe that we can safely navigate this perilous time in our history. But to do so, it is paramount, it is of the utmost importance that we broaden our index of who we include in that term of human, to encompass as wide a spectrum as possible. Or, as Carl Sagan once said, to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the only home we have ever known. Thank you so much for exploring this topic with me. The tubes are open for discussion. I want to hear from you. In the meantime, I will see you next week.